put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey gang, how you doing? It is Wednesday night and we are here for another episode of TogChat. It is episode number 48. It is great to see all you guys here. We got Jay, we got Louise, Steve McCarthy, Mike, Kyle, Diego's here, Philip's here, Trevor's here, Nick Britton's here, Alan, Crystal, Esben. Wow, and I gotta tell you guys, my intern, Morgan, she's here. She showed up like 4 minutes before we started, but you know, I don't think you guys realize that I really am kind of a sensitive guy, and I noticed that when she showed up, everybody was like, hey Morgan, hey Morgan, hey Morgan, hey Morgan, hey Morgan. I got like just a couple hey Joes, you know? So not like I'm keeping track of that or anything, but the idea that the intern's getting more love than me, like, gosh, you know? So anyway, seriously guys, let me know where you're from. I always love to see those messages to get a sense of where people are tuning in from and where they're watching from. It's Wednesday, gang, so this means it's open mic night. Your questions, I'm gonna do my best to answer all of them, but I gotta tell you, there we go. Here come the Hey Joes. That's what I wanted to see. All right. So literally, I got out of the studio about 45 minutes ago. So I had like a 12-hour day in the studio today, shooting with a makeup artist, shooting with a model out of New York, prepping a whole bunch of stuff for videos that's coming up. So I'm not going to lie, I'm exhausted. So I am going to do my best to stay on track tonight, stay focused, and get to as many of your questions as I can. So my buddy Chad is here. He's collecting all the questions as they come in. So make sure that you guys are dumping those questions in there, and I will do my best to get to all of them tonight, okay? So you know the drill, and Trevor's already put the message in there. Please let people know that we are here. I'm counting on you guys to help get the word out there for me, okay? So please, if you're not following me on social media, make sure you're doing that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are the three where you find me posting the most often. And believe me, there's a lot of stuff that goes up on those three that you're not going to find in YouTube, that you're not going to find here in the Talk Chats. So it's worth following. Also, if you're able, I'd appreciate your support on Patreon. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But let your photography friends know that we're here. Let them know what we're doing. Twitter's one of the fastest ways to get that message out. Facebook is great, and heck, you can even pick up the phone and call them. That'll work too, okay? And then, of course, please, gang, that little thumbs up button, it's really easy to push that button. Give that button a push. Thumbs up, greatly appreciated. And, of course, always comments, super, super, super helpful, okay? So I want to dig right in tonight. I've got a question that was posted in, oh, gosh, I got ahead of myself again. Two things. Number one, I've got a giveaway for you guys. Last week, if you were here, and if you weren't, why not? I gave away one license to Cubic Capture 3. So for those of you that don't know, you've got to be a Mac user and you've got to be a Canon user. So it's a little bit limited, but if you meet those two criteria, it's actually a pretty cool piece of software. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, so stay tuned. If you use Mac and you use Canon, you can have a shot at winning a full license of Cubic Capture 3. So my first question tonight is a question that was actually posted in my Facebook group last night. So I promised that I would address this because it's a question that comes up a lot lately, and I actually turned off the comments in the Facebook group because right away, tons of people started weighing in, and I wanted to try and give kind of a more open-minded response, because I'll admit I have a very strong feeling about this too. So here's the question. Laz Harris asked me if I could address the issue of excessive skin softening. So it's a post-production Photoshop question, right? So he wants to know what my thoughts are. He goes on to say specifically, I see so many images recently that almost look like CGI because of over-processing. I see skin softening as a corrective tool to be used judiciously. I agree with that so far. He goes on to say, but if the processing is so extreme that the subject will never look like their processed photo, is that absurd or cheating? It's one thing if you're creating a non-realistic looking image for the, it's one thing if the idea of creating a non-realistic looking image is the goal. So last two things he mentions, it would seem to him that applying skin softening on all your images by default is another problem. And then he mentions that he happens to be in the Asia Pacific area. And in Asia Pacific, it's a very popular thing to kind of over soften skin because women in particular are really obsessed with fair skin. So, and I'm sure like any second now, there's going to be people start dumping in all their feelings about this. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is honestly hold your opinions for a second. And I want you to follow along with me with a thought. Because obviously this is the kind of question that everybody has really kind of very firm opinions. Like, you know, some people are for it, some people are against it. There's very few people that are kind of in the middle. And here's my take on it. There's this really sometimes corny, you could say, old quote. It goes back to, if I'm not mistaken, the 1940s. I can tell you that the quote is from a piece of writing by an author named Margaret Wolfe Hungerford. You can Google it. Her quote is, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder." We've all heard that quote, right? So, you know, when I first read the question that Laz posted, the first thing that kicked in for me was, well, yeah, excessive is excessive. And in fact, you guys, if you've been to enough of my TogChats, you've heard me go on about people that overdo, you know, frequency separation, because frequency separation is an awesome technique until it's not, right? So I have very strong opinions, and I do like clean, almost perfect skin, but for me, there's got to be texture, there's got to be a certain amount of realism to it. So it's kind of like I want the skin to look like a person could look on their best day with no acne, no blemishes, no nothing. But to go beyond that is not my taste. So, you know, I kind of tried to step back for a second and see, well, you know, what's really the fairest way to answer this? And actually, I think that Laz kind of answers the question himself. And that is that we all have to respect the idea that we all have different tastes on that. Now, there are some situations as photographers where there are criteria that dictate it. So one of the questions that one of the things that he mentions, he talks about the idea of the person not looking like themselves, right? So you all know that I photograph models and for many years made my living doing modeling portfolios and getting new models started. So in the scenario of shooting a model, I had to be very careful and realistic in the sense that I could not over-retouch a model, because if I over-retouch a model, there's a couple of things that happen. Number one, I actually make her look bad because she's not going to be able to live up to her images. Number two, I actually make her look bad from a business perspective to her agencies and to potential clients, because she's going to show up for the job and she's nothing like her pictures. If I've taken weight off of her, or if I've over smoothed her skin, or she's got a scar and I removed it, or she has wrinkles that I've gotten rid of. So there is a certain amount of responsibility in that situation to not over retouch, to indeed make a person kind of their best, but not over retouch it. The way that I deal with that in that modeling situation, makeup and lighting. Good makeup and good lighting can accomplish almost anything that we want to accomplish in Photoshop as far as making skin look good. Now, when we start talking about body modifications and weight and all that kind of stuff, obviously that's a completely different ballgame, and that's even there you can do some things with posing and camera angles and lighting. But I think, so I guess where I'm headed with this, Laz, is this is one of those questions that I guess I wish would go away. And the only reason I say that, I'm glad that you posted it. It's not that I have a problem with the question. It's one of those questions that there is no right answer. So honestly, I have a phrase that I use from time to time. You may have heard me use it in the past. In this world that we call photography, the only people that are wrong are the people that are convinced they're right. Unless we're talking about physics. Physics is physics. It's math, you can't argue. But when it comes to what's too much, what's too little, what's the right amount, what's not, is it too much shadow, is it not enough shadow, is the lighting flat, is the lighting too contrasty? At the end of the day, there is no right or wrong. There simply isn't. There are schools of thought, there are opinion groups, but there's no right or wrong. And really, that comes down to we all have to accept the fact that what one person likes, another person doesn't. Now, within all of that, is it possible to retouch a picture poorly? Meaning, applying so much skin softening, since this is what Laz is asking about, that we've taken the depth away from the face to the point that it doesn't look human. Well, unless there's kind of an obvious attempt at some type of a creative statement, then sure, of course. But, and again, as I predicted, there are people that have very set opinions. But my point that I'm trying to ask all of you is to actually just take a chill and realize that the opinions don't matter. That's the point. This is one of those things that as an artist, as James Parrish, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. It's one of those things that as an artist, as a photographer, you have to realize that you do what you feel is right. You do what you like, and especially if you want to make money at what you're doing, then your challenge is to find somebody that will pay you to do what you do. So Laz, I hope that helps. I get the sense, especially since your question was really very thoughtful and you had really worked through it, that you were kind of actually trying to open up your own mind in terms of asking the question. The other element, which I didn't touch on, and Laz did touch on at the end of his question, he mentioned, Asia Pacific area. Certainly from a cultural standpoint, there will also be different opinions on what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, etc. But definitely one of those questions where there's no simple, clear-cut right or wrong answer. Ask that question in any Facebook group, ask that question in any photography forum, immediately you will get, boom, that's the answer from tons of people. And you'll get different variations on that answer all across the board. And the problem of it is none of them are right. They're only right for themselves. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the beauty of it. So it's really not one of those questions where there's kind of a right or a wrong to it. Okay, Tom W., thank you so much, man. So for those of you that see these little blue bars coming up in the chat, let me just let you know, obviously we got a bunch of questions that have already been posted. I'm going to do my best to get to all of them. But if you've got a question that you absolutely need to get answered tonight, Super Chat will do it. If you're not sure what Super Chat is, look for that little dollar sign down in the bottom left-hand corner. You can make a donation of anywhere from $1 all the way up to $500 if you're really desperate to get your question answered. Heck, for $500, I may show up at your house and answer it. But the point is, if you need your question answered for sure, and you want to make sure that I get to it, make sure you do a Super Chat. I will get to it. Any Super Chats I will answer tonight for sure. All the other questions, I'm going to do my darndest to get through all of them. You have my word, okay? So if you haven't done it yet, gang, please hit that like button really quick. Post a comment under the video, all that good stuff. It would be greatly appreciated, okay? All right, so let's dig in here and see what we've got for some questions. So Diego, by the way, it's also worth mentioning for those of you that tune in right at 6:30 when the notification goes out, if you're not doing anything, the party actually starts around 6. I usually start setting up for TogChat, for all the TogChats, anywhere from 45 to 30 minutes early. And one of the first things I do is I turn the chat on so that I can start sizing things and getting things set up. So a lot of people have figured that out, and frequently there's conversation happening already at like 6 o'clock in the evening. So if you have the time, show up early. But Diego's got a question here. Using a speedlight, I'm finding it more and more of a problem not having a modeling light. Any hacks or tips other than getting a strobe? Well, so Diego, I saw that one person gave you the suggestion of actually taping a small like flashlight to your speedlight. I've done that in situations where it was really dark, but not for a modeling light. Here's my honest answer to you. I would encourage you not to rely too heavily on modeling lights, period. The reason being, modeling lights are never going to give you exactly what the flash gives you. And I don't mean intensity, because obviously they're not going to be as bright as the flash. but they're not going to give you exactly the same kind of light. In fact, I'll give you an example today. Some of you know that I just switched over from the Adorama Flashpoints and I've gone back to Paul Buff, who I used for many years, and I'm using the DigiBees. I did a quick practice session with them last Saturday. Today's the day that I first had a chance to really start to put them through their paces. And one of the things that's great about the DigiBees is that they have an LED modeling light, and it's like a 400 watt equivalent modeling light. So it's bright. And part of the reason Buff did that is so that you could use these DigiBees as video lights, which is awesome. But indeed, as much as I love the brightness of the modeling lamp, and as much as I love the fact that it's a daylight balanced modeling lamp, which is great, it still is not going to give me, and it doesn't give me the same kind of light the flash tube does, in part because the flash tube sits in front of the unit and it's round. So the flash tube throws light everywhere. Whereas, so basically you're getting a full 180 degrees of light with the flash tube. The LED light aims forward. And while it has a wider spread, it's not a full 180 degrees. And that actually does make a difference in the quality of light. So what I would actually encourage you to do, Diego, and this is kind of the tough love answer, I'm going to be completely honest, because I know you've been doing a lot of practicing and working with a mannequin. I would encourage you, going back to my Remember the Egg video, to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot as practice, so that you are building your visual database to understand that if you put a light here, you're going to have a shadow here. And if you move it over here, you're going to have a longer shadow. And if you move it over here, you're going to have a longer shadow. A little bit of practice, you get to the point you don't really need those modeling lights. And I will tell you guys, honestly, I use the modeling lights just to create enough light to focus the camera. That's it. I do not rely on modeling lights for shadows or things like that at all. Ever. And in big part, that's because of digital technology. All I have to do is take one test shot once my light's set in place, and I see exactly what kind of light that I'm getting. So that's all it takes. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea to want to be able to use the modeling light and all that, but what I am encouraging you, Diego, is don't become too reliant on the modeling lights, because you're going to learn the hard way. They're really not accurate enough to really give you a true representation. You want to become reliant on your eyes, looking at a preview, and your experience of knowing, place a light here, get a shadow there. That's what you want to become reliant on, not the modeling light, okay? Diego also asked, DigiBees sure look interesting as a system. They're not really available outside the US. Off the top of my head, Diego, I have not seen another strobe/LED combination system that is a full system yet. So that's not to say that there isn't one somewhere in the world, but I have at this point yet not seen one. So I'm sorry that unfortunately Buff, and I mean, I don't know for a fact, that I'm going to assume, since you said that Buff doesn't ship outside the US, I wasn't aware that they didn't do that. That's kind of unfortunate. But I am pretty confident. I mean, and keep in mind, the DigiBees have been out for, I believe, just over a year now. So they're not brand new. They've been out for a while. They make a ton of sense. So I really do think you're going to see some more flash manufacturers coming out with strobe, LED, combinations along the way. Steve McCarthy, Joey had the DigiBees, which, by the way, like I said, I've used them twice now. Okay, but yes, I have them. I just bought them. What is your favorite modifier? Well, so the modifier, just to be clear, the modifier's got nothing to do with the DigiBees. So I want to be fair about that. So for studio strobes, monolights, gang, my standard reflector is the 7-inch standard basic reflector, which I'm not even sure what the visual angle is on the reflector, but it's an industry standard measurement, okay? That's my standard reflector. If I'm using a mod, my preferred mods are medium softboxes, which are like 24 by 32 inch softboxes. I use the PhotoFlex ones, and I love a beauty dish. I will say, and now I want to be clear, I'm not sponsored by Paul Buff. They didn't hand me these flashes, by the way. I bought my DigiBees, all 8 of them, okay? So, I'm being completely honest about all my feedback. What I love about Buff as a company, their customer service is awesome. There is something that I stumbled on, though, in purchasing this equipment that I'm really ticked about. I had a buff beauty dish for many, many years. Loved it. You know, basically the way the buff mount is, it's the Balcor type mount. You squeeze 2 pins, slide the modifier on, release the pins, and it locks. Super fast, super simple. I love it. They've changed their beauty dish. So their beauty dish is now in 2 parts. So I ordered a new beauty dish when I got the DigiBees. And their beauty dish is in 2 parts. One is the dish, which you do the Balcor clips, put the dish on, boom. But now there's a hole, one hole in the beauty dish. You have to line that hole up with the umbrella slot in the Alien Bee, or the DigiBee. And then you have a pole that's got a disc on the end of it. And you slide that pole through, and that becomes the inside part of the beauty dish. So it's 2 parts and 2 steps, which is incredibly inconvenient, especially since generally when you mount a beauty dish, it's going to be high. You generally don't have beauty dishes mounted low. So I will absolutely be hacking another beauty dish. I'm probably going to take the LumiPro beauty dish because it has the interchangeable backs, and then just take one of the buff speedlights, take it apart, put that actual mount in the LumiPro beauty dish. Because I did use the buff beauty dish today, and there's just no way in the world I will keep dealing with the 2-part beauty dish. It's really, really kind of obnoxious, okay? Louise, I will not answer your question yet. I'm sorry, dear. Louise wants to know if you guys here, I'll switch you over just to give some context to this so that you guys understand. Let me go to the Facebook group here. I posted a real quick video last night. Let me bring up one of the pictures. I'll let you see the lights here. So one of the members of my Facebook group, who is also one of my patrons at Patreon, Doug Thompson, he showed me this light called a Saber light. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, dude, I could make one of those really cheap. So these Saber lights are $140. And it's basically a strip light that you put a speed light in the end of. So literally mine costs less than 10 and mine are better. Like, I swear to you, I'm not kidding. They're better. They balance better. The ones that you buy for $140, you have to mount whatever kind of trigger you have inside the unit, which means that you can't use the optical slaves on your strobes. It's just not really well designed. So I was able to produce these really, really easy. So Louise, the only reason I won't tell you right now, dear, is there's a video coming out. So when the video's done, which will be sometime next week, I did the shoot for today. In fact, if you want to see one of the shots, this was done with 4 of those units. So that's right out of the camera. That's sitting in Capture One Pro on the desktop of of my computer in the studio. So I will let you know the entire materials list and bill list. And I will tell you, especially since I know that you saw the post in Facebook, Louise. Tony, thank you. Thank you so much. Post your question. I will answer your question for you. The version of them that you see in the pictures that I posted in Facebook last night, gang, as soon as I started shooting with it today, I realized that there's a flaw in the design. So it's a real simple mod. And I did the mod kind of in real time while I was shooting, because obviously I wanted to get the shoot in today. So I did the mod on the units that I built. When I do the video, which I'll record the video later this week, when I do the video for YouTube, I will show it with the mod. I'm not going to show the version that I did this week. But there's definitely a flaw. And so I went back and I looked at the Saber lights because I've never actually used a Saber light, but I looked at all their sample images and that, and there's a major flaw in their design, a major flaw. So it is correctable, and I have corrected it and figured it out. So at the same time, I don't want anybody to run off and build one of those if they think they can figure out all the parts, because this is like one of the easiest DIY builds I've ever done. But there are some really, really key elements that I thought of that the folks at Saberlight, who had this $140 light, did not think of, that makes theirs actually really clunky to use. These things are durable. You can bang them around. They're super light. It weighs less than a pound. So I will definitely give you all the details, but I'm not going to tell you the pieces yet. Okay? All right. So Tony Prince, I have photos on stock sites, but I want to try selling them as prints directly from a personal site. Have I screwed myself already by having them up on stock sites for sale for super cheap? Wow, Tony. Well, there's a couple ways to look at that, Tony. So here's the thing. If somebody goes to a stock site, so keep in mind, let me go the other way around. If somebody's looking for a print on their wall, like an art piece, I don't think too many people outside of corporations, I don't think too many people are going to go to a stock photo site to say, I wonder if I can find a nice picture to hang on the wall. I'm not saying it never happens, but I don't think that's a common thing. I think more along the lines that, people that are going to buy someone else's photograph, in other words, it's not their own, they didn't take it, so it's not from their trip or their vacation or their experience, they're going to buy a picture that someone else created. I believe that a big part of what they're buying is they're buying into the idea that I really like this person's work. Like, for instance, if you're looking at selling prints, you should look up the name Peter Lik. Peter, Peterlik. He's a landscape and nature photographer, travels all over the world, does this brilliant landscape type imagery, and he's got galleries in Vegas and all over the place, and sells his stuff for several $1,000s a print. And the stuff is like oftentimes like 6, 7, 8 feet long, these prints. Oftentimes metallic, etc. They're beautiful. So we all realize that's an insane price to pay. But he has put together a body of work and he's become so well known for what he does. Part of what people are buying, they're buying that. The idea that people will spend millions and millions of dollars on a Rembrandt or a Renoir, same type of thing. A big part of what they're paying for is the name, the artist. So I think that my advice to you, Tony, would be if you're making money on the stock sites and you want to keep making money on the stock sites, don't stop, keep doing it. If you find someone who's willing to buy a 20 by 24 print and they're going to spend $1,000 or $500 and you're going to frame it in the whole bit and it's going to be a nice metallic print or a stretched canvas, etc., then if you do that, that's also part of what they're paying for. In other words, you're going to do the fulfillment. You're going to provide them a framed piece of artwork. At least I assume you're going to frame it. And so it's the whole package. So I don't think that you've screwed yourself at all, because I think you're going after two completely different audiences in that sense. So I hope that helps. If you're at all worried about the idea of, well, what if somebody pays me $500 for a framed print and then 6 weeks later they find that picture sitting on Shutterstock where they can get it for $20? Are they going to be ticked off at me? Well, they may come back and say, hey, what's that all about? But the problem of it is all they're getting for that $20 is a digital download. They're not getting a big print. They're not getting your signature on it. They're not getting any of that. Because part of the way you make prints really pay off too is by doing limited editions. So let's say you've got a landscape shot and you want to do it at 20 by 24 framed. So if you basically make it clear that you're only going to do 10 of them at that size of that image, that increases the value. They can't get that on the stock site. So I don't think that you're, and yeah, Nick Britton just said, there's adding a certificate of authenticity. And that's exactly what I'm saying is number them, give it a certificate, all that adds to the value. And it's really easy for you to do on your end. That's not a ton of extra work. So I would say that you'd be absolutely fine, okay? Jim Billadou, when are you doing the rain gutter strobes? Somebody asked me about this earlier today. I have no clue what you guys are talking about with rain gutter strobes. I have never talked about rain gutters. Ever. I'm not making rain gutter strobes. I think that rain gutter would be the dumbest material in the world to actually make modifiers out of, personally. I'm not saying you couldn't, but for me, I would have no interest in playing with that. Sorry, but you're confusing me with somebody else that's doing DIY YouTube stuff, but I've never talked about doing rain gutter strobes, okay? So Mitch's question here. You just set up your in-house studio. Awesome, Mitch. You're building your portrait portfolio, shooting a friend's daughter for senior pics. Freebie for them, practice portfolio for you. Good plan. Can you recommend lighting setups that you should practice or shoot with? So, Mitch, if you're just starting with lighting, keep it simple. One light, go from there. There it comes. I have 4 speed lights, 5 umbrellas, and backdrops. So, having all that gear, I don't know how much you've actually used it. Okay? So here's the thing that I'm going to give you, and I hope this is going to help you, Mitch, especially since you spent $20. I want to make this answer worth your while. But I don't like to take the approach, myself personally, and so I don't like to teach it this way. I don't like to take the approach of, oh, it's a senior portrait. Use 3 lights and this umbrella or this softbox and put it here and here and here because that's a senior portrait. I completely disagree with that. I would rather see you take the approach of, I've got a visual idea. And that idea is not only based on something that I want to do with lighting, but it's also based on, I really think that that idea would look good with this particular subject and would look good in this particular scenario. Okay, because that's really, I promise you, long-term, Mitch, that's the way you want to be thinking about lighting. You don't want to start categorizing lighting where if it's a corporate portrait, I'm doing this, this, and this. If it's a senior portrait, I'm going to do this, this, and this. If it's a modeling shot, it'll be this, this, and this. Then all your pictures are going to look exactly the same. And that kind of becomes really, really boring. And the problem of it is no two people look the same. So no two subjects are going to be exactly the same. So what I would encourage you to do is, since you are looking to build your portfolio, understand that the people that look at your pictures, they don't care if you used 1 light or 12 lights. They simply don't care. The only people that care are crazy people like us and the rest of us here in this chat. That's the only people that care. Your subjects and your potential subjects, they don't care. So I would encourage you, since you're in the build my portfolio mode, stay within your comfort zone. And what I like to do, and this is what I've done pretty much my entire studio career, do 2/3 of the shoot in your comfort zone and really focus on personality. Because believe me, for senior pictures, it's not the lighting that's going to make the shot. It's not the camera angle that's going to make the shot. It's the personality you can get out of a teenager, which is scary. Teenagers are at a point in their life where everything they're being taught, that's stupid, that's ridiculous, that's dumb, don't do that. So teenagers tend to be hyper aware of, that's going to look stupid. And your challenge is you're trying to get lots of personality and energy out of them while they're being taught that's dorky. So the key to really making a senior picture work is not lighting. It's personality. You've got to really focus on that personality, okay? So stay within your comfort zone for 3/4 of the shoot. Really work the personality. Get shots that just jump off the screen. And then for the last quarter of the shoot, do something with your lights that you've never done before. And that could be anything. That could be trying my backlighting technique that I do. If you've never done that, you can do some really cool stuff with that. In fact, believe me, gang, that backlighting technique, because it's been coming up a lot lately, when you put all the light behind the subject, that's one of the greatest ways in the world to deal with frizzy hair. So, because it makes it disappear. In fact, the pictures that I showed you from the shoot that I did today, the ones that were on the computer screen, that's what was going on in that shot. We were using a light fan, and the texture of this young lady's hair, unfortunately, it was a little rough to work with. So it wasn't blowing quite the way I would like it to blow. So that's why I actually switched. I had originally been on like a deep orange background. I was going for kind of a moody look for that shot. But I switched over to the white, and it worked out so much better because I was able to get the flowing hair without getting the really bad strays and flyaways that went with it. So I would do 3/4 of the shot, shoot, stay in your comfort zone, focus on personality. 1/4, push yourself out of your comfort zone, try something you've never tried before. Still focus on personality, but that's where you do the crazy lighting stuff. But promise me, Mitch, don't get into that habit of this kind of picture gets this light, this kind of picture gets this light. That will make your work really boring really quickly. Okay? All right. James, how did the light modifiers go? They went well. I don't know when you came in, James, so I'll mention it again really quick. I did realize that the light modifiers, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, they're the ones that I was just showing you guys in Facebook that are modeled after the Saber lights. Literally 3 minutes into doing my test shots, James, I realized that there's a major design flaw, not just with mine, but also with the actual Saberlight. But it is a real easy fix. So I was able to do a quick modification in studio today and get the light to do exactly what I wanted it to do. When I record for the video, I will build one more, and that'll be my step-by-step in the video to show the modification. But other than that, they're pretty cool. I mean, personally, I prefer a broader light source. I'm not a big fan of the real thin lights. But also, if you go and look up the Saber strips, I think they're called, not Saberlight, Saber strips. Mine has a bigger face to it that curves, which means mine throw light out a little wider than what the actual Saber strip does. It's got more of a thin rectangular one face. And I did that very, very intentionally because I didn't want the light to be quite so directional, because otherwise it's just a long, harsh light. So I would say overall performed every bit as good as I hoped they would once I made the modification to the design flaw, because I basically built mine mirrored after the Saber strips. So I've never actually used one of the Saber strips, but as soon as I did my first test shots, realized, wow, that's not practical. So it required a little bit of a mod, but it was fairly simple. So you guys will see that video soon, okay? Let's see, Dancheb. Hey, Joe, do you let your models or clients see the original photographs before being retouched? Rarely, extremely rarely. So one of the few examples, or I should say few exceptions, was actually here. I'll switch my screen back. Today, I did let this young lady see a few of these pictures during the shoot, just a few. The reason I did that, this was her first time in front of the camera. She's never modeled before. She is a young Ukrainian girl from Brooklyn, New York. She's never been in front of the camera. This was her first time. And indeed, she was ridiculously nervous. So in order to help her, kind of relax a little bit and get some confidence that things were going well, I did let her see a few. Danchep, I've mentioned it before, so I'll give you kind of the abbreviated version now. The reason why I don't show previews, several-fold. Number one, people hire you as the photographer because of your expertise. They need to be able to trust you to turn out great pictures. If you spent any time photographing models at all, you are going to learn that, and when I'm saying models right now, I'm using the word very broadly, meaning anybody that calls himself a model. So I'm not talking about Victoria's Secret models. I'm talking about anybody that decides to get in front of a camera and say they're a model, okay? You will find that a lot of the people that do this, and this is social commentary, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth, they're doing it to boost their confidence, which means it's the worst thing in the world to do, because modeling, especially professionally, is not the way to boost somebody's confidence at all. It's just not, because that's a person that clearly doesn't understand what modeling is. But this is a person that usually does not think they're pretty enough or whatever. So if you show a preview and it's not off the charts amazing, that person has just lost all confidence in you. And most of you have experienced this. If you've paid attention, where you show someone the preview on the back of your camera and they look at it, it's kind of like, okay. You can tell they're being nice. Well, I hate to tell you, the minute that happens, you've lost your subject. Your subject has lost all confidence in you. You're screwed for the rest of the shoot. Plus, when I have someone in the studio, I want to be taking pictures. I don't want to be looking at pictures. The only time I find it necessary to show previews to someone, as I mentioned with the young lady today, I knew I had a shot that she would love. So I knew I could boost her confidence with it. If I had any doubt in my mind, in other words, if I wasn't happy with how the shots were coming along, no way I ever would have let her see them, regardless of how nervous she was. Not until I knew that I had something that was going to impress her. The only other time I'm going to show previews is if I'm working with a dancer. Or like, for instance, if you folks have watched my video on how to do a hair flip, I will show the person what the shot is looking like so that they can better understand why I'm asking them to do the movements that I'm asking them to do. But otherwise, no, I don't show previews. If I'm in a studio, I'm there to take pictures, not look at pictures. It's that simple, okay? I know a lot of people disagree with that, especially if you're shooting models and you're in the model mayhem world. All those girls, they want to look at their pictures, and all the guys with cameras want to make them happy, so they show them their pictures, and they stand around and they talk, and they BS for ages, and they take like 60 frames, and they have basically squat crap, but it goes over Facebook and all over the place. Like, that's people basically having fun, and I respect that. They should have fun, but that's not the way you get good pictures, okay? Models, photographer shoots, and when it's all over, that's when the fun starts, because that's when you can look at the pictures when it's all over and say, yeah, look at what we made. But to do that during a shoot, no. Yeah, Eric, I mean, it's one of those tough lessons to learn, but you have to be aware of it unless you are dead solid. And if I know, like if the model tips her hand, or even if it's a portrait, and the person tips their hand really early on, and I can tell they're going to be neurotic about the way they look, what I'll do is I'll switch my camera over to black and white so I get a black and white LCD preview, or if I'm working in Capture One, I'll switch Capture One over to black and white, and I'll do a couple of high key, black and white, high contrast frames that look like a glamour shot right out of the magazine, and I'll show them that. Because that way I know it's going to look good, and they're not going to see all their imperfections. Because by doing that, the skin is very white in the image, so there's no imperfections, and they think it's wonderful. And then, at that point, it's like, okay, now we got to get to work, so I'm not showing you any more pictures. We're going to work. And we work. That's it. So, okay. Next up, what do we got here? Let's see. Marcos, he's going to add something to that question. Do you let the client select the photos of a photo shoot, or do I make that work? So, Marcos, it depends on the circumstances. So, if it's a portrait, I will certainly show my subject proofs. I don't show tons of proofs. So you guys all know that I'm a heavy shooter. So I could do a portrait session, just a simple portrait, like for a LinkedIn profile picture, right? If somebody came to me and said, hey, I need a new business portrait, I would easily shoot 250 to 300, maybe even 500 frames in that session. That's a lot. I will show them proofs, maybe 10. On an extreme day, 12. That's it. I'm going to narrow it all the way down to that. The more choices you give people, the harder it makes it, period. So if I'm working with a model, so like this young lady that I shot today, she came in so that she could model. This, again, it was her first time modeling. She's trying it out. She's tall, she's beautiful, she lives in Brooklyn. Everybody keeps telling her she should be a model. My makeup artist met her and said, hey, we should work with this girl. I said, okay, great, bring her in, because this way I don't have to pay her, right? I did give her $60 cash just to say, hey, you were wonderful today, thank you. But she came here expecting to make no money. I paid for her bus fare, that was it. She came with my makeup artist. I will not be showing her proofs at all. I have told her that I will send her some photos next week that are retouched and finished, etc. I'll make sure she gets at least one of each of the different scenarios we did. We did 5 different scenarios today. So I'll make sure she gets at least one of each of those, but I'm not going to show her proofs. So again, Marcos, that's going to depend on the circumstance that you're working with. But as far as I'm concerned, anytime you show proofs, be careful about showing too many. You just make it harder, and you can overwhelm people that way. Okay. Jean-Edward Calvino, have I ever thought about putting a book together? Yes. And I'll be honest with you, I'm getting more and more stubborn about the book thing. So, true story, and I'm not going to drop any names, but I signed a contract to do 5 books 6 years ago now. And I got a nice advance to do the books. Literally about 2 months after I signed the deal and started working on the first book, I was having more and more conversations with this publisher about digital books. Because this was at the time, if you go back 6 years, digital books were really just becoming the craze, okay? And they were becoming clearly the future. This publisher, who shall go unnamed, their version of a digital book, keep in mind these were photography books. In fact, the first book that I was going to do was a book on posing. Their version of a digital book was having somebody read the book and doing an audio book. So they were going to do audiobooks of photography books. So I literally sent them the advance back and said, you know what, that's it. At this stage of the game, John, I don't see myself writing a full-blown book, honestly, because I don't feel that a book is the best way to teach photography. A big part of what I'm doing on YouTube and the reasons that I'm doing it and the way that I'm doing it is because of what I've learned through a lot of research and a lot of work that my wife has done on how people learn cognitively. Books are not the way to learn photography. Books can be good reference, but the point is we don't need the books because we do have the internet and tremendous references. So I will give you guys a little tip. For those of you that are like in Norway and Denmark and Australia and all around the world, very soon, by this summer, you will be able to attend a workshop with me where you can interact with me. You will learn from me. I will do demos, and you will be able to set up your lights in your studio or your shooting space, and you and I will interact and learn. We're going to be doing it via video, live streaming video. So I am in the process of putting all of the outlines together and getting all the curriculums together. There are a series of these workshops that I'm going to do this summer, and they're all done by very, very simple live streaming technology. So if you have a laptop or a computer and you have a webcam built into it, or if you have an accessory webcam, all you have to do is be able to set that up in front of your workspace, and you'll be able to attend a workshop with me. And it'll be really very much like doing a workshop with me in person. We will start the day with me doing a little lesson, which is what I normally do at my workshops to kind of set up what we're going to do. And then from there, we will actually go into essentially a practice scenario where I will demo lighting arrangement or model posing techniques, etc. And then you in turn will try them at your end. So we won't be in the same place, but we can basically do the learning in a workshop format. But better yet, instead of going to a workshop where you're using somebody else's equipment in somebody else's space, which of course is perfect because it's big and it's all that stuff, you're going to be able to do the learning in your space with your equipment, with my supervision and my guidance. So there'll be small group workshops, 5 to 10 people. They're in the works, and this is actually the first I've talked about it publicly, but I've been in the process of putting it all together. My goal is to start the marketing material on it next week, and I will probably start doing the first ones in June, and actually I'm going to start them after Morgan gets here for the summer so that I have a little bit of help in being able to run them and manage them. And she doesn't even know that yet because I haven't even told her about it, but they're coming soon, okay? All right. Ashish Verma, can you please discuss a little bit about how to find your personal style? Wow. It's interesting that you bring this question up, okay? So I'll tell you what, I'm going to answer that question for you, but if I may, bear with me one second here. I'll tell you why. In fact, actually, Ashish, if you don't mind, I'm going to pass on your question for right now, but let me explain why. Just last week, literally, this is why when I saw that question, I was like, wow. Just last week, I had a photographer friend reach out to me who he's going to be doing a presentation for a photographic organization this summer. And they asked him to speak about the topic of a photographer's style. So in the course of doing his due diligence and his research, he has reached out to a bunch of his photographer friends and said, hey, would you answer these questions for me? And it's basically like, he had 3 questions. Photographer style, how do you get it? The second question was, how do you know when you have it? And the third question was, is it really that important? So, very similar to the question earlier tonight about skin retouching and is what's too much and what's not enough. As soon as I read the questions, I had very strong opinions. And even though I sometimes will answer just as quick as anybody else, I paused and tried to think that through for a minute. And so I wrote him actually a short novel in reply, which I don't want to read the whole thing here tonight. But what I'm going to do, and I've already started to work on, is I'm going to turn that into a YouTube video about that. So Ashish, I'm going to ask you to kind of stay tuned, and actually next week there will be a video about photographic style and kind of my take on it, because it might surprise you what my answer is. I don't think that it's going to be an answer that you're kind of expecting, so I don't want to spend too much time on that right now, okay? C-Dow, I'm a new photographer. I just purchased a Canon 80D with the kit lens. Congrats. Do I need a speedlight for great pictures? Okay, so Parminda, thank you so much, Parminda. I really appreciate it. C-Dow, I have to be honest with you. So the question that you asked, and I know you asked it sincerely, and clearly you're a beginner, which is great. Welcome. I'm glad that you're checking out my TogChats, and I would encourage you, join my Facebook group. Even if you're not ready to post picture yet, you'll be able to learn a lot there. The link for the Facebook group, it's in the description below the video, and my buddy Chad will go ahead and paste that link in here too, so you can do it. C-Dow, you don't need a flash for great pictures. That's really not a question that can be answered that way. You will need a flash to light certain situations. You will need more than one flash to do other kinds of lighting. You will need flash and some kind of a modifier to do other kinds of lighting. If you are I'm sorry, gang. Kenneth Preston, Troy's battery ran out. You had to be here earlier. You know the whole story. Sorry. So, C-Dow, since it sounds like you're just getting started, and if you have chosen to learn from me, let me just say, number one, that I'm honored and I appreciate it. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do sincerely. Don't buy the flash. Don't worry about the flash until you've taken at least 5,000 pictures. And I'm not kidding, 5,000 pictures. Learn to use your camera. In fact, if you've had the camera for more than a week and you haven't read every page of the instruction manual, you need to go back, you need to read it again. Now, if you're brand new to photography, C-Dow, and you have looked at the instruction manual, I'm confident there are big sections of that manual you have no idea what they're talking about. That's okay. Find a highlighter or a magic marker or even a pen. Underline the sections that you don't understand, just so that you know that's your homework. Even bend down the page so you know where to find them. And then every so often, when you have a little bit of time, go back to that one of those sections and start Googling the terms that they're using. Or go to YouTube and look up those terms and learn about those terms. But you need to get to a point where you understand your camera inside out and backwards without having to think about it before you start adding lights. One of the biggest mistakes that people make on a routine basis is they're willing to spend the money and get all kinds of gear, but the problem is they start buying gear because somebody tells them they should have it, or because they think it will make their pictures better. Gear does not make your pictures better. Learn that camera inside out and backwards, and then by that time, you will have taken enough pictures. You're going to be able to look at the pictures you've taken, and you're going to know which ones am I struggling with that I need more light. Because what might happen, C-Dow, is you might realize you don't need the light. You might realize you need a different lens. Or maybe you need a tripod because you're doing landscapes. So please don't rush out and buy a speedlight, because the speedlight will not make better pictures. You are going to make better pictures. 5,000 pictures, then you look at a speedlight. Okay, that's my advice. All right, next off. So I am what I am. Do you ever use a speedlight modifier for outdoor shooting? Which modifier could be used without having too much fall off for total body shot? Medium-sized umbrellas are not the best in windy situations. Okay, so I am what I am. Great username. I would probably not use an umbrella outdoors at all unless I was shooting like at night, or if I knew I was going to be shooting in a good overcast shade. And that's mainly because umbrellas, you guys listen to me, I'm all about using the shoot-through umbrella indoors. I don't mind that it throws light everywhere because I understand the inverse square law. So I rarely have a problem with the shoot-through umbrella. Rarely. Outside, the problem of it is you're trying to overpower the ambient light, or at least match the ambient light, right? I mean, so it's not even about making the background dark. It could be just simply matching the ambient light so you get nice light. So umbrellas are not very efficient with their light because the light's just going everywhere, okay? So that being said, if you're gonna go outside and use a speed light and you want modifiers, I would consider something along the lines of a beauty dish, depending on what you're shooting, because I don't know exactly what you're shooting, or better yet, just a small softbox. Understand that with a speed light, the bigger the modifier, you're still gonna lose more light. So by using a smaller softbox, that's definitely gonna help. But you're right, umbrellas are difficult in the wind. You better be prepared to put some heavy weights on your stand. But I would actually encourage you to look at a smaller size softbox, maybe like a 16 by 16 or maximum like a 20 by 20. I think you'll have much, much better luck with something like that. Okay. Let's see. Gary Geddes. I just heard that a model was going to pay $2,000 to be represented, scouted at the mall. Scam or standard? No, Gary, that's just the scam, period. Done. She's going to spend $2,000. She's going to be represented. She's never going to make her $2,000 back. Hands down. I don't need to know the name of the company. The best agencies do not scout at malls. Schools scout at malls. I guarantee you if you talk to that model, and I say model, if you talk to her in more depth, whatever this company is, part of what they're going to give her for the $2,000 is they're going to give her classes. And those classes include learning how to diet properly. Those classes include learning how to take care of her skin. Those classes include learning how to walk the runway, even though she's probably like 5'3", okay? That's what she's getting for the $2,000. But yeah, that's absolutely 100% a scam, period, okay? Diego, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. Sincerely, thank you. Trevor, can I please make a video for models using the Big Joe Fluffy Bunny Rabbit approach to explain the real world requirements of becoming a model? Actually, Trevor, there are some of those already, okay? If you go back through my channel, when I launched modelingtip.com, I started a series of videos called Modeling Tips. They're coming back, okay? If you guys notice, I haven't posted a lot of videos in the last couple of weeks, okay? So, you know, for those of you that have been following along, I wanted to be able to do these live streams. YouTube, you know, part of the whole challenge with this YouTube stuff is you really kind of have to go along with what YouTube wants to grow because they reward the people that do, and they reward you by making sure more people see your videos, etc. Helps your channel grow. So at the end of the day, most of you, while you like these TogChats, people want the tutorials, and it's the tutorials that bring advertising money. It's the tutorials that grow the channel. But when it comes to the live streams, YouTube's putting a lot of emphasis on that. And not a lot of other YouTubers are really getting on board with the live streams. So I really, at least in the photography world, so I wanted to nail down the technology. That was step one. Step two, I've been working on getting these workshops set up for the summer. And over the last couple of weeks now, I've been shooting a lot more of the background pieces for these videos coming up. You're going to see the videos start flooding back out. But what I started actually a month ago now, so I'm collecting them. I've had a writer working with me on putting together these scripts for the modeling tips. So if you go to my website, modelingtip.com, you'll see that I've got articles there. Some of the videos are posted there, but if you go back through my YouTube channel, you can find them. And they are kind of that practical approach to how to model, etc. Dumaris, thank you so much. I really sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. So Trevor, there's a lot more coming on the modeling stuff in a video format. And I'm also doing some that are kind of from two perspectives. In other words, looking at a modeling photo shoot, but we're going to look at it from the standpoint of what the photographer needs to know and what the model needs to know. So, and kind of do it in a parallel path so that you can kind of see, you know, both sides along the way. Okay? All right, next up, Kyle Sharp Studios. I just got hired to shoot weddings for another company, subcontracting. Okay, so you're going to be a second shooter. Well, actually, maybe not a second shooter. I'm sorry, you're shooting it for another company. Got it. You get to keep the images for your portfolio, but does it hurt my brand to shoot for somebody else? No, not really. Not if you're just getting started, Kyle. I mean, I don't know how big your brand is in the sense, are you already making a full-time living as a wedding photographer? If that's so, that might get a little confusing in your area. But if you're just, kind of getting started out and you're looking to not only build your portfolio, but you're looking to build your business, hey, you got to pay your bills. I don't see that being a problem at all. Just make sure, the one thing I will tell you, Kyle, and of course, actually, you see it on Facebook. I have seen many relationships between photographers and second shooters or photography companies and, subcontracted photographers go south over people posting images and taking credit for them, etc. So make sure, Kyle, that you really understand and have a very clear, spelled out on paper relationship with this company. For instance, here's the confusion that I wouldn't want to happen. You shoot a wedding for company A. You have a shot that you really love. You post it on your social media and you say that you're the photographer. 3 weeks later, they post that photograph on their social media. If they don't credit you at that point, it makes you look like you're scamming people. So you want to make sure that you've got a very clear arrangement in terms of not only the ownership of the images and what you can do with them, but what can they do with them and how can they represent them. If they're going to use them but always put your byline on them, then I'd say, hey, yeah, let them promote you. That's great, okay? If they get to use them under their name, well, then there's some potential confusion. So as long as you're kind of covering all those bases and you're sorting that out in advance, I don't see any reason, not to, okay? I am what I am. Do I do gels for shooting on location or shooting on location or outdoors? Sure, absolutely. I'll use gels anywhere if there's a need for it. Like if I want to throw color in. I don't do a lot of CTOs, like color correction gels and that. But yeah, if I've got a creative idea and I want color for it, absolutely. I don't have a problem with that. So, David Johnson, I'm looking to build up my portfolio, but I don't know where to go to get models or people for it. Would you have any recommendations? David, I believe you're in the US. Give me a heads up here. If you're in the US, believe it or not, Facebook and Instagram are two great places to start. There's a website called modelmayhem.com. But now that I said that, because there's already people starting to type like, oh my God, that's horrible. Let's be clear, okay? The key to finding people to pose for you, number one, is ask people. Sometimes the best subjects are people that are not models, because understand that if you're going to get amateur models, and there's nothing wrong with an amateur model, but understand that amateur model is, number one, potentially going to have bad habits. Number two, potentially going to have an ego bigger than a billboard because she's worked with lots of other amateur photographers that have just told her she's amazing and taught her nothing but bad habits. Awesome, David, you're in Boston. So those three things: Facebook, Instagram, Model Mayhem. So when you use somebody from any one of those places, you have to understand that you're dealing with an amateur, and that's okay. If you're trying to build a portfolio, you need people in front of your camera, and it's actually better practice to work with that amateur, but you've just got to be honest. Also understand that you'll hear people all the time bitch about how models from Facebook, models from Model Mayhem, they flake and they don't show up, etc. Roy Patton, I do shiver. Only because and this is actually my point right now, the problem with Model Mayhem and all those places, it's not the models. I want to be really clear. It's not the models. You just have to take a big step back and understand what's really going on. Even though Model Mayhem says it's the place for professional photographers and professional models to meet. No, it's not, okay? There is no magazine, there's no advertiser, big name advertiser, that's going to a website like Model Mayhem to find a model. And if you guys want to bring that question up earlier in a TogChat one night, I'll explain why in great detail. It's actually a super simple and super logical reason why advertisers don't go to websites for models. So basic and so simple. So you just have to realize that it's an amateur community. So the reason why girls flake is because photographers are lazy. And by the photographer being lazy, you're encouraging the girl to flake. If you're going to message somebody on there and trade a couple messages back, yeah, I'd like to shoot. Let's shoot Saturday at 1 o'clock. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. I'll see you then. Bring a bunch of outfits. We'll figure it out when you get here. You're putting zero effort into it. So why should they take it seriously? If your work's not freaking amazing, and you're putting zero effort into it? Hell, if I was that girl and somebody better contacted me on Friday right before the Saturday shoot, damn straight, I'd go with somebody better in a heartbeat. Who wouldn't? They'd be stupid not to. So, when you're going to work with somebody on that level, even today, I told you, so true story today. So this is like crazy stuff. The young lady that I photographed today, she is a Ukrainian girl from Brooklyn, New York. Well, she's from the Ukraine, but she's living in Brooklyn. My Russian makeup artist met her working in a department store in Brooklyn. This young girl is 18 years old. My Russian makeup artist says, hey, you need to come to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we'll photograph you. So she called me before she asked the girl, and I said, hey, if you can get the girl to do it, I said, but here's the thing. If you're going to ask this girl, I'm going to send you a text message. You need to give her all the information I'm about to give you. So I told her, I said, make sure that you not only give the girl my name, give her my website address, give her my YouTube page address, give her my email address, give her my phone number. Once we booked her and she said she'd do it, I told my makeup artist, now we have to make sure that she's serious about coming. Because for her to come down here today, that required her getting up at about 5 o'clock this morning. Okay? And getting on a bus with a woman that she met in a department store to come shoot her the photographer in Allentown who she's never met. So I had the makeup artist tell the girl that she had to text me because her English isn't great. So she's worried about having to talk to me. So I told her she had to text me photos of the outfits that she was bringing because I knew the minute she texted me, I would be able to at least communicate via text. So as soon as she texted me some of the outfits, I wrote her back and I told her, the outfits look great. I'm really looking forward to meeting you. Do your parents know that you're coming here? And she wrote back and she said, yes. I said, okay. I said, if your parents have any concerns, you make sure that they call me. You have my phone number. I said, and you tell your parents that you will send them a text when you arrive at my studio and that you will check in with them every few hours during the day. So basically what was happening here was I was making sure that I was establishing a very comfortable relationship. I was making sure that this girl knew that I was really serious about wanting to do this. And I was making her jump through some hoops by having to get the clothes out of her closet, put them on, try them on, take pictures, send them to me. I was ensuring that she was serious. And even though there was a language barrier, and believe me, she speaks kind of really bad English, okay? And you know how fast I talk? She had a really hard time today keeping up with me, so my Russian makeup artist was translating all day long, which was fine. But you've got to take those steps and put in that effort to make sure that people know you're really, really serious. As long as you're willing to put in the effort, and believe me, when I shoot a modeling portfolio, my prep list that I give to my models, it's literally 14 pages long. And it doesn't start with, this is what you pack the day before you come. It starts a week before the shoot and follows all the way up to that week. So again, it's all about, putting in the effort. Yeah, I've been hearing about this this purple port, Trevor, and I'm actually going to have to check it out one of these days. I guarantee you it's the same thing because I guarantee you, even in Europe, major advertisers are not going to the internet to book models. And like I said, guys, I'll gladly, I'll dig into that on another TogChat. We'll do that earlier in the show when I have a little bit more time. It's actually a really, really simple reason. So, yeah, that would be my answer, David, is ask people, literally. And if building up your portfolio means getting more experience, then it kind of doesn't even matter what they look like. If you're feeling very, very confident about your lighting and all of that stuff, and it's a matter of like, okay, now it's time to up my game, then yes, go to those websites, do Facebook, do Instagram. That would totally be the way to go, okay? So where are we at here? H&A family photos. What's the price for the strobe I bought? Are you talking about the DigiBees? I got the DigiBee 800s. I think they're like $379. That's the studio strobe, okay? Steve McCarthy, on the beauty dish you mentioned, do you like the silver or the white dishes? White, absolutely white. I don't like silver anything, to be honest with you. Personal preference. For me, the light's just too cold. Certainly, if you need your modifier to really put out as much light as possible, you go with silver. So it's not like, oh, it's horrible. And you can color balance it. It's just my own little quirk. I like white. And most of the time, Steve, I use a sock also. I own the grid. I hardly ever use it. Rarely ever use it. But generally, if I'm using the beauty dish, I'll have the sock on it. Occasionally, I'll do it without the sock, but white all the way. So, Nick Britton, what's my opinion on the Godox range of strobes? Pretty impressive, honestly, but a lot of gimmicks. You know, understand that all the stuff that those Godox strobes are doing, you can do it with the basic strobe. You know, it comes back to the high-speed sync, all that stuff. Dumeris, the prep list, it will be coming as something that you will be able to get access to. Yes. Those videos and that I mentioned that are coming up about the modeling stuff and that, it's going to be available as a small ebook. It's in the works. Okay. So yeah, I mean, the Godox stuff seems to be very nice, but I will say it's got a lot of gimmick features. For me, Nick, I like simple lights. What's great about my LumaPro speed lights is that I don't have to look at the back of them. The menus are so simple. I can feel the buttons. I can do what I got to do. Done. The DigiBees, very, very similar. Now, I couldn't do that today because it's only the second time I've used these DigiBees, but the way the buttons are set up on the back of the DigiBee, I can reach up to one on a light and give me a couple more shoots to really get familiar with the strobe. I won't need to look at the back of the light. I'll be able to do what I need to do simply by feel, which makes it super quick, super simple. So, you know, that's my thing there. But I've heard great things about Godox. I know a lot of photographers that I respect are using it. Great stuff. So, Daniel, do I have a video on using a strobe or softbox combo as a background for a high-key single image? Not yet. But honestly, you don't need a video, Daniel. You do some test shots. I mean, seriously, like, I love that you guys like my videos, don't get me wrong. But some of the stuff you just don't need videos for. Set it up and experiment with it. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that, Daniel, not to pick on you, sincerely. Because again, obviously, I'm flattered that you people follow me and watch my videos. But the reason I make that statement is that what I see a lot of people do, so I hope you're not this person, Daniel. What I see a lot of people do is they watch the video and then they go out and try it for the very first time when they've got a real subject, like a paying client in front of them. That's the worst thing in the world to do. Like, just go practice. All this photography stuff is problem solving, but it requires practice. So that's really the key. Okay. So let's try it. Let's get just a couple more questions in here, guys. So there's definitely no way I will get through all these tonight. I apologize. We're running over time here, but I'll try and get a couple more in. Pamela Maxwell is asking, how long do my sessions last? Well, if we're talking about a modeling portfolio, which is what I did before I started doing YouTube full time, that's a full day. We start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Jim, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate it. We would start at 9 o'clock in the morning and we'd finish just before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The 5 o'clock was a hard deck cutoff, like had to be done because my makeup artist comes down from Brooklyn. So she goes back by bus. If she misses that 5 o'clock bus, not only does she get home extremely late, but she makes my life hell for most of the evening. So we're always out the door by 5 o'clock. If I'm doing a portrait session is going to take 2 to 4 hours, depends on the type of portrait session is, what we're doing. If it's just a simple like corporate headshot, probably 2 hours. I have a simple philosophy. When I have a subject, especially with hair and makeup in front of my camera, I want to take lots of pictures, not just one picture. I want to take lots of pictures. I mean, go back and look at my videos called Work the Shot, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I want to try lots of it. Even today, I was shooting images that were specifically for videos that are coming up for YouTube. But once I had my shot that I needed for the video, I was off experimenting and trying things and, seeing what else I could come up with, because all of those pictures, I can turn those into videos for the last frame where I show you guys my lighting and that using the 3D diagrams and everything. So, Morton Jacobson, how much time do you spend editing a photo? Honestly, it can be anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes to a couple of hours. The last Images Reimagined video that I posted, the one with the little girl dressed like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, if you are a member of my Patreon group, the patron supporters, they have access to the full edit, like start to finish, because in that video, obviously, I show a very abbreviated version of it. So the full edit on that video, from the time that I sat down to the time that I finished the image, was 1 hour and 27 minutes on that shot. So it really depends on the image and everything that, that needs to go into it. So that would be the best answer I can give you there. Okay. Let's see. Andrew, well, actually, that's a great segue. So Andrew wants to know about the discount code for the lighting software. So, gang, a couple of things. Since we're talking about the lighting software, if you've never seen one of my last frame videos, the software that I use in those videos, it's called SetAlight 3D, okay? SetAlight 3D is an awesome piece of software that allows you to essentially build a studio, put different lights, different modifiers. It works with monolights. It works with speedlights. You can even make the room, the studio space, the exact same size as yours. So like when you watch my last frame videos, the studio space that you see me use is the exact same studio space that I'm using, okay? So that's a big part of what I like about that software. So their website, let me grab the link for you. I should have had that queued up and I didn't. I apologize, but I'll give you the link. Here is the link to their website. They have 2 versions of the software. One is the basic, one is the studio. Take a look at both. The best part is you can download a free copy of it, but that discount code that you've got there is 20% off, runs up until June 30th. You have to use that Happy Edel 20 to get the discount. But I highly recommend it. It's a great, great, great learning tool. And the best part of it is it's incredibly accurate. So when you set lighting types and exposures and ISOs, it's amazingly accurate. And I will tell you, the folks at SetAlight, they've been great to me. They don't pay me any money. We just kind of have a mutual love for each other. They've got some really cool new features coming up for the software. So I really would encourage you, if you're really trying to improve your lighting game, or if you like to do a lot of good planning, check out SetAlight 3D. It's really pretty good. And then that brings me to the other piece of software that I was talking to you guys about a little bit earlier, and that is the Kuvic Capture 3. If you want to check out their website link is right here, okay? So a couple weeks back, I did a video. Let me just switch my screen over here real quick. I did a video for the best software for shooting tethered. So you may remember that. If not, there's the, let's see, there it is right there. So there's what it looks like. You can find that on my YouTube channel. I don't really talk about Kuvic Capture 3 in the video because the video is dedicated mainly to Lightroom and Capture One. But if you follow the link at the end of that video to my blog, I do mention the Kuvic Capture 3 there. So the catch is with Kuvic Capture 3, it is a Mac-only, Canon-only software. So I'm going to ask you, if you would like a copy, I have one to give away. If you're not going to use it, please, sincerely, don't ask for it, because I want it to go to someone that can't afford Capture One, someone that doesn't have Lightroom, someone that's really going to put the software to use. So remember, you got to have Canon, you got to have a Mac. So if you have those 2 things and you're not already shooting tethered, but you want to give it a try and you need the software, type a message to me in the chat window now that you use Canon, that you have a Mac, and that you would love to have it. And then there's also one other catch. If you want to win this piece of software, you've got to be a member of my Facebook group, and make sure that if your YouTube username is different than your Facebook username, when you ask for it here in the chat window, let me know your Facebook username so I can find you on Facebook and message you and tell you that you've won, okay? So, that being said, gang, I'm going to call it a night here. We are way over time, and I'm not going to lie, I am like exhausted beyond all belief. It was a lot of fun shooting today, but it was a lot of work. So, that being said, I got to thank you guys, sincerely, for being here tonight. Again, I really, really, really appreciate the support. Tomorrow night, gang, is a marketing night. We're going to review another website tonight. Next week, we're going to do our first kind of marketing tutorial. So next week, I'm not going to do a website review. I'm going to do kind of a little mini lesson in TogChat on Google Analytics and what every photographer should know about Google Analytics. Because a lot of you, if you have websites, you may have looked at Google Analytics, and it can be a little scary because the amount of stuff that it does, it's really amazing. And the fact that Google does it for free is awesome. So am I going to encourage all of you to become experts in Google Analytics? Oh my God, no. But there are some things that you should be paying attention to in Google Analytics that will definitely help you with your website and your marketing efforts. So that's what we're going to deal with. So we're going to do kind of a Google Analytics for dummies or Google Analytics for photographers, or maybe that's one and the same, but that's what we're going to do next Thursday. But tomorrow night, we've got another website review, some really interesting images to look at, and also obviously we're going to go through that photographer social media, and then I'll be back here again Monday and we'll do more photos. So really, I hope to see you guys tomorrow night for TogChat. If you can't make it, the weekend's right around the corner. So please make sure, remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.